Yo, what's good gamers? My name is Dr. Ryan Terrell, Psych Sensei, and I'm super stoked to bring you this next episode of QueueUP. But before we get into it, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so I can continue to vibe and bring you more insightful conversations. And whether you're a player, a student, a coach, and you want that sweet brainy blue buff, make sure you stop by my website, psychsensei.com. And while you're there, boost your mental mana bar by signing up for a free consultation where you and I can figure out your win con and start working towards it today. And if you really want to get in my head, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at @ThePsychSensei. And remember friends, stronger mental wins. In this episode of QueueUP, I sit down with the powerful Laclan Parker, who is the head performance coach for Renegades, Rocket League coach, and founder of MindClickers. In this insightful conversation, he reflects on his experience as being a performance coach, what holds most players back, and what it takes to play at the next level. Are you ready to queue up? Let's get it. What's good, gamers? What's good? My name is Dr. Ryan Terrell, Psych Sensei here, and I'm hanging out with the head Esports performance mental coach for Renegades Gaming, Coach LBP Parker in the house. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. It's a pleasure to be on. It's reminiscent, I guess. You know, you've been on MindClickers and now I'm on your show. Absolutely love it, man. I'm keen to jump on, chat about a whole wide variety of topics today, man. Like, I'm keen to just catch up and go through some stuff about what we've been thinking both within the scene and just catch up. You know what I mean, man?
Hell yeah, buddy. I'm sure that this will be the first of many back and forth appearances on each other's shows. So, I mean, I'm just stoked to be here with you. And yeah, dude, even like just off camera when we were talking in the back just of things that we could go, it's like, well, let's just see where this thing takes us. But before we go on this crazy road, Parker, dude, like, tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into gaming? What do you do? All of it, man.
Yeah. So wow. Okay. Hang on. I'll just whip out the autobiography. Let me pull it down from the shelf. Hang on.
Dust it off. Yep.
But yeah, no. I guess my story in esports goes back quite a long time. Probably back to console days. So you know your typical COD days where it's like Modern Warfare 2, scrimming there. I'm pretty sure I got to 10th prestige in Modern Warfare 2 extremely quick due to sweating it out quite a lot, missing a couple of days off school. But, you know, we got through it. And, you know, those are some of the golden times when you reflect back on them, going into Black Ops 2 and then making the switch from console to PC when I came on within the Call of Duty 4 Pro mod scene. And that's at the time, which was the most prosperous scene over here in Australia. A lot of the, I guess, previous CS guys actually moved to Call of Duty 4 Pro mod. And that's when it was real competitive. Jumped on a few teams there, played out on Cybergamer quite a bit, you know, scrimming and just getting that passion and that underlying drive for the esports scene. And I think that's where it really kicked it off, just that competitiveness. Because obviously at the time of that as well, I was actually doing Taekwondo. So I think that competitiveness through traditional sports actually drove through within esports as well, which was a really interesting link. And I've thought about it recently because I never really actually connected those links. But, you know, obviously, you know, with Taekwondo and sparring, you have that competitiveness to win, that competitive to drive. And I think that's where it actually started to link in. But then I guess, you know, pretty much not going back to console since, just really being on PC. That's where I got introduced to StarCraft. And I think that's where my, you know, competitiveness took it to the next level because, you know, in StarCraft, it's completely different towards a team game, right? Because obviously in StarCraft, you're a one-man army. You rely on yourself. You have that. If you make a mistake, it's on you. And I think that's where I started to really become in love with the mental game. The fact that, you know, you're in control, especially in StarCraft, where as soon as the clock starts, it's 0-0. You're both in 100% even territory. Of course, if you're versing a different race, if it's, you know, Terran versus Zerg or Protoss, whatever, there's differences. But if it's, you know, the same race like Terran versus Terran, then it is 100% fair straight away. But as soon as that clock starts, that's when you make the differences. That's where the mindset starts to kick in, the anxiety, the stress, the pressure, all those things that impact your gameplay. And, you know, some games could go for 4 or 5 minutes because of the high pressure, the intensity. One move could, you know, pretty much lose the game.
Yeah.
And that's where I really just started to, you know, fall in love with the esports scene. And I guess in that time I was starting my my undergraduate, so a Bachelor of Sport and Exercise Science, and really just connecting the dots between traditional sports and esports. just getting a passion for that as well, and just really starting to think, well, obviously, I've got such a nice background in esports. How can I connect the dots? And I guess that's where I just kept working away. And finishing up in the sport and exercise science, that's when I started MindClickers towards the end of that, just because I had that knowledge, that passion to just learn more, to connect with people like yourself, professional players, coaches, organization owners, shoutcasters, and really just get their insight, their mindset towards the esports scene, how they view it through their eyes. I think that was the crucial aspect that I wanted to really just understand.
Yeah.
And then that led me into this year doing a postgraduate in rehabilitation counseling, where I can really just start to tune in, especially in the mindset, the underlying motivation, and learn a lot more things in terms of motivational interviewing, promoting change, adopting change. Because obviously, with esports athletes, the biggest thing is ambivalence, right? Whether they want to do something, whether they don't want to do something, they're always on the line. They understand that doing hand stretches could be better for their health and their longevity, but then don't go ahead and do them. So really just starting to help connect those dots. And I guess at the start of this year, I actually had a mentor. I reached out to him, Daniel Bonner, so working with Ground Zero over in Perth, Western Australia. And I basically said, I really love the esports scene. What should I do? And he actually said that at the time, the Renegades were looking for a coach, the Rocket League team. And I said, okay, yeah, sure. Let's just give it a crack. What do I have to lose? If they say no, no stress. As long as we have that crack, that's all that I wanted to make sure I do. It's just, if the opportunity presents, just have a shot. Because what have I got to lose, right? Yeah. So I had a crack. I jumped on with those guys. It was a Friday. And this was, I think, last November. So I was going into the last regional. And that weekend was actually the regional event 1, a part of the fall split. And the guys pretty much said, yeah, we love what you're doing. Let's, just jump on, test her out. So I jumped on that night and we did like 3 hours of scrims. And it was great. Did one-on-ones with the boys going into the weekend and just really started to learn with them. And obviously I didn't have high expectations, because obviously the biggest thing that I'm all about is building rapport, because obviously you can't build rapport in one day, right?
Absolutely.
So I didn't have big expectations going into that weekend. But, we ironed things out. We went to the next weekend. We performed really well. And then we actually ended up winning the second regional event. And I think that was just a reflection of just working away, gradually understanding, and just, building respect. And I guess, now we're up to here. I think RLCS is starting next month, so about the 15th of October. We've had a really good off season, so ready to jump on with the boys and really just ramp it up. So I guess that's my short story so far.
That's awesome. So before you continue though, what is MindClickers? Make sure you do some promo for your own stuff, man. Like, what is MindClickers, and who would be interested in that kind of stuff, dude?
Yeah, so MindClickers is essentially an insight into the mind of professional esports personalities. So that could be from professional players. So I guess talking with some of the best in their own category in regards to, what do they do before a game? How do they feel before going into a tournament? Do they feel anxious? Do they feel stressed? How do they deal with that? What are their coping mechanisms? And really understanding how they can adopt and be the best that they can at their, own esport. And the biggest thing I love talking with pro players is this whole idea of, going to LAN, because going to LAN is like the dream for so many players, especially when you hear, their first time going to LAN, the stage, the cameras, just hearing that reflection is just so fantastic. And then I guess other people I have on is coaches. So I guess coaches of those players or coaches of a scene as well. And we discuss, different coaching styles. We kind of have a chat back and forth in regards to, what's effective, what's not, different ways to help provide feedback, because I think feedback's one of the biggest ones I've been starting to, I guess, touch on more recently, because, feedback's a very individualized thing, right?
Absolutely.
And then, also having a chat with shoutcasters. Some guys that I've admired for such a long time, to hear what they think, to hear how they build their vocabulary and, string long sentences together and build that hype and engagement. And then also, having on organization owners. So the guys at the very top to hear their mindset, especially in regards to, regional differences, North America versus Europe, Oceania versus Asia, different comparisons. And then obviously, the final category, which is esports researchers. And I guess, that fills under the category of physiotherapists, psychologists like yourself.
Hey.
sports psychologists, physiotherapists, dietitians, all those guys that are really helping to provide that underlying support to a lot of players as well to help to give some good key takeaways to a lot of players.
Wow, so you've touched a lot of things on that show, and I think that's just a testament to your interest also. Of those groups, I mean, the ones that you've worked with, players, coaches, organizations, these different levels, what would you say is like your jam? Like, what do you love? Like, what population, what area do you like working in the most?
I think in terms of having guests on MindClickers,
or just in general, guests on MindClickers, or even your work in the field.
I think definitely players, especially the youth players. I think I'm really starting
Define
to really probably 14 to 19.
Okay. All right.
I've had a couple of guys, especially after I've had some of the big pro players on, kind of just reach out to me like, hey, I really like the episode. How can I be like that? Or what should I start doing? And around that time is when I started to incorporate at the end of each episode that kind of key takeaway message. So it's kind of like a quick one-on-one between the youth players and the guys that reach out to me and the pro players to give them a direct message. And they've been loving that. Especially, I guess, some of the big Rocket League guys that I've had on more recently, which is the episodes are yet to come out. They provide really good, thorough, kind of one-on-one messages towards a lot of these players that go for like 2 or 3 minutes. It's a lot more focused about growth and having this mindset for growth as well, because, at that age, you've got so many opportunities, right? The esports scene has grown exponentially within the last 5-10 years. Yeah. So, you have so much room for growth, and it's only going to keep growing.
Yeah.
So I think if you have that consistent mindset, then what have you got to lose?
Powerful. Speaking of mindsets, what are some, and speaking of mindsets, especially in the youth that you work with, like, what are some mindsets that you constantly have to break down and reanalyze and think about, those unhealthy ones for your athletes?
Yeah, well, I mean, for example, I got reached out in regards to, so they over here in Australia, we have a high school league, which is kind of a division where I guess high school students can actually participate in esports. So kind of imagine when I was back in high school, it was just like traditional sports. So you play basketball with the opposing high school, you go play table tennis. But now they've got esports, which is just crazy to think about. Because I would have loved that opportunity, man. It would have been just so sick to just jump on it and just compete for. They got like $5,000 prizes as well. So it's definitely nothing that's minor.
Yeah, and what do you get for basketball? Like a high five and a good game. That's it.
Yeah,
like what?
a sticker to sign basketball.
We're champs. I made money. Yay!
Legit, yeah. But it's crazy, man. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how much it's developed.
Yeah,
but I guess among those players, I've had a couple of guys reach out to me in regards to just dealing with that kind of stress. They want to become an esports player. How do they balance the study to gaming ratio? That is a massive one. Where do you draw the line between actually, putting in the amount of effort towards, I guess, wanting to be a professional player? Because obviously putting the path to being a pro player is one that's up and down, right? It's not straightforward. It's not linear.
Nope.
It's a very curved balance and understanding, I guess, in the times where you actually are, losing a game or you are defeated, accepting that, accepting where you could have went better. Accepting that, I guess, each loss, you take that as an opportunity to learn and reflect back and look through the VOD review and say, okay, I could have done that different. I could have done this different, in comparison to just straight up winning and then not actually going back and looking at the VOD review where you could have learned those key details, right? I think that's been one of the biggest ones that I've helped a lot of guys do. But then also, as I mentioned, just helping with that balance. Because obviously in that age group, obviously there's so many people that are in esports now. One thing I didn't actually realize was this whole peer pressure identity regarding esports, where there's a lot of, he was actually like, well, I want to do this tournament, but some of the other guys are going to be watching in, and I really want to perform, and it's like, I don't want to let them down, or it might be a couple of girls watching. What can I do? And it's kind of this development stage where it's like, before it was traditional sports, now it's esports. It's crazy to think about it. But just really helping to just break down and just make sure that they're feeling confident with themselves, helping with their stress and anxiety, and just making sure that they feel confident and they have that underlying motivation to perform.
Ah, that's so funny because as you're talking about those peer pressures, I remember a couple of years ago when Fortnite came out, kids were coming home to their parents and crying and being like, "People at school are calling me default. I don't have any skins. I need to buy this skin. I'm gonna get made fun of." It's like, wow, that's actually a real, like, we're laughing, but like, that's a real problem. Like,
It is, yeah.
it's the equivalent of not having that cool thing that everyone else does, and basically it's called you a default, like your basic, like, report track.
It's crazy.
Oh, I don't think about that though, dude. Like, they just think that, they're just playing games and it's not a thing. Or like, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I actually have a funny story there. I remember when was it, second year of uni. It was kind of this period where I wanted to find, obviously study being full time. I wanted to get a little bit of work in, but I wasn't sure what area to really go into. And I actually saw an advertisement for a local kind of position as I don't know what you guys call it over there, but like a lollipop person, or even if you have them, it's kind of like outside of a school where kids can like cross the street safely. Like there's someone
like
that holds up like a
guard.
sign.
You're the crossing guard.
Like a crossing guard. I did that for a couple of months.
They call it what though? A lollipop holder?
They called a lollipop person.
A lollipop. That's so much better. I'd rather be a lollipop person. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I remember it was like during that Fortnite period era, or it was actually probably a little bit early, probably like first year. And there were so many kids coming out, and these guys were like 7, 8 years old, and they were talking about like buying V-Bucks later, and what can I spend my V-Bucks on later, and do you play Fortnite, or I'm gonna 90 on you and stuff. And it's like, oh, hang on, you're gonna 90 on someone. It was crazy. But it's just so strange to just think like how far it's gone, especially with like the lingo that's being adopted, right? Because you have just younger and younger and younger guys entering the scene, and it brings about the question, right? Obviously we have this whole idea, and this is actually probably a nice thing that I wanted to grab your mind about as well, is this whole idea of an esports prodigy, right? Because obviously you have so many younger guys entering the scene, and especially with the amount of time they have to actually play, they have so many more resources available to them now, whether it be YouTube, whether it be aim labs, or different actual ways to actually test strategies or actually practice. Are we going to see more prodigies arising towards when they're like 18 and they're just like, you have like a team with like 5 tens players pretty much?
I mean, yes, that's going to happen. Absolutely. I think though, this is another thing that we have to think about. Like, yes, there will be prodigies, but here's the thing. I would also expect those prodigies to be very smart, because something that I think that's different in esports than like, I don't know, Pee-wee basketball, where they just pick up basketball and play, is that like you have to think through so many scenarios in esports. In basketball or in traditional sports, the scenarios are patterns. There's a set pattern that you can follow, so you don't actually need to always think. You can, especially if you can run faster, you can jump higher, you can do a lot of things more physically easier off the bat. It doesn't require thinking. But that's the hugest difference, is that in esports, they have to be cognitively flexible to understand what they're doing, when they're doing it, and why they're doing it with their friends. So will there be more prodigies? Yes, but developing those prodigies, I think, is going to be a lot more intentional than just having a Tiger Woods natural swing club, natural born jumper that can just slam the basketball. Because yes, there'll be natural born thinkers, but at the same time, who do you know that's a prodigy at thinking, speaking, strategizing, executing, and not being a dick at the same time? And you're asking,
it's a tricky combination,
right? And you're asking someone to do this with a non-developed frontal lobe, which is responsible for all 5 of those things.
Yeah.
So will we see it? Sure, we'll see it, but it's going to be a lot more challenging and intentional to develop, I think. I don't know. What do you think, dude?
Yeah, and I think that'll just develop alongside could it be also just a lack of professionalism as well? Like just a lack of, like, I guess if you compare, because kind of what you're pinpointing is kind of like an IGL almost, like an in-game leader, someone who can really take the lead of the team, someone who can really be that shot caller, take the lead and really take the initiative, right?
Yeah.
Because all teams, need that really when you think about it. I mean, not so much in Rocket League, because you have 3 that are pretty much on the same wavelength, but obviously in terms of like Valorant and CS or even League, you sometimes have that kind of guy that really does tend to make the shot calling a little bit more obvious.
But
it's going to...
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, it's going to be interesting to see how that develops and what examples we can see of that, because obviously a lot of these guys start younger in more so the content creation sort of stuff, like starting to jump on Twitch and stuff, and that's becoming a lot more appealable nowadays rather than just becoming a straight up pro.
Yes.
Obviously it's a little bit more lucrative, right? Because obviously it's a lot more lucrative and I guess appealable to see a 16-year-old fragging out on Twitch, or just see like a clip, and it's like, wow, okay, he's actually doing really well, in comparison to waiting 6 months for him to enter a tournament to potentially not even hit a single shot. It's like, well, hang on, where's my focus going to be right now?
Oh my gosh, this conversation is taking a very interesting turn, my friend. Well, to go back to your original question of will we see Prodigies, I think we'll see more Prodigies in single player titles then, because shout out to Sonic Fox if you want to come on and talk to me. Huge fan, Sonic Fox. Sonic Fox, I heard, is a fighting prodigy. He can just pick up any game, kick the crap out of everybody. But he doesn't need to rely on a team, or sorry, they don't need to rely on a team. They don't need to rely on anyone. It's just them and what they understand. And maybe if they have a coach, like it's them talking strategy of fighting games. And of course, fighting is a little bit different. They don't get tired or anything. It's just health bars, but they still have the same amount of stamina typically, unless it's like USC, but that's a whole different thing. But team games may be a little more challenging because again, you are developing that ecosystem. But going back to ecosystem, to answer your other question with why aren't we seeing these now? And is it an investment? Well, if you think about it too, exactly what you're saying, you go back to traditional sports, there's this built-in grooming system and training of how to get coached, how to be a good player, how to be a good teammate, how to set your own schedule, how to be responsible for all this stuff. Because if you don't finish your homework, you can't play the game. Like all of these things start so young. And so then there's the disconnect too between who is responsible then for putting in place the system to ensure that you are creating a strategized thinker, non-dick child who's responsible for that. Because I mean, if you be real, in your experience, I'm sure this has been my experience, I'm sure in your experience may be similar, that's been pushed off to either organizations or people like you and me or coaches. Yeah,
for sure. And it's tricky, especially when you don't have buy-in from, I guess, upper management to really understand, well, hey, these younger guys actually need X, Y, and Z, right? Because I think, talking with a couple of previous coaches, outside of MindClickers, they've kind of, said that, they're coaching some of these guys that just really just don't have any regard for actually wanting to be a pro player or wanting to actually step into that footstep, step into the driver's seat, go from first to fourth in one swift motion and just actually try and become a pro. They're just kind of on there for the thrill of it. They've got signed, they've got a contract. And they're just doing the bare minimum. It's like, well, how do you motivate these guys and how do you drive that incentive to actually think that, you've got so many good skill assets. You can calm well, you can, strategize really on the go. Being able to do it on the go, that's a big asset. Being able to actually think, okay, a team's pushing B, we've got to rotate back to A through, lower tunnels or whatever it may be. And being able to just think on the fly and being able to take the lead and have that confidence in taking the lead, I think that's massive.
Absolutely. Again, we're talking about cognitive flexibility, but how do you do that? Well, you need to have a good, solid understanding of the fundamentals, because once you don't need to think about the fundamentals, now I can think of other things like call outs and where my friends are versus where am I in space and how do I click heads. So
exactly,
absolutely developing all those skills. Let's be real. Like sometimes we don't really know, like, yes, they love being called a pro. At the same time, you're asking a 16 to 19-year-old to say, like, you have a job. This is something fun. That's a video game that you enjoy. At the same time, when you get to that level, people care about winning. Unless, because that's the whole point of an organization, is to win. Unless you're a streamer, the point isn't to win, it's to entertain. Yeah. So then you even have to think as a kid. Oh my God, this is like, I had this conversation before. I was tripping balls. Like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be an influencer. I was like, I didn't even freaking think of that when I was a kid. But now they're saying I'm a gamer. I want to be a gamer. So it's okay. If you want to be a gamer, how serious do you want to be? Do you want to go pro? Do you want to be entertaining? Like, how do you want to do it? Because each path you pick in gaming, it's all of it, is different. Because if you want to train to be a pro, it's no longer about fun. It's about winning. And you have to learn how to win. Fun will come by winning, or how you define fun, but the purpose of you being a pro is not to have fun, it's to win. Sole purpose in your job is to win. Versus a streamer, we have fun. You're like, go enjoy XD, have a good time, be entertaining. So what do you want to do? And because you can do everything, but what is that thing?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I think answering that question is tricky, isn't it? Because that's something I want. Because there's so many incentives. I mean, you look to traditional sports where you have 15, 20 people on a team. You look to esports on a Rocket League team. You got 3 members, maybe 4 with a sub. The ability to jump onto a professional team is so much slimmer compared to traditional sports. But on the flip side of that, the ability to start up your own team is a lot more expansive, right? On one stage, you've got jumping onto a professional team. It's a lot more harder to do because there's a league or whatever, Val or whatever that may be. There's 5 slots, maybe 6 or 7 with subs. But then you can just start up. I can decide. Okay, I'm going to jump on tonight. I'm going to create a Discord. I'm going to name it the Full Send Gang and create my own organization. I'm going to start to just develop and chip away. And you can build that up from the scratch. A 15, 16-year-old could do that.
Yep.
But I don't think they could do that in something like traditional sports, right? So you have this very interesting dynamic where you can compare the two. But then it's all about, taking that and wanting to stick through it and that building process in comparison to just trying to, jump on and just being consistent streaming and then potentially try and get picked up by a large organization.
So what you're talking about is having a strategy to what you're doing. Is that what you're talking about? Or having 4 or 5?
I guess so.
I know it's kind of hard to do when you're 16. Use this thing because it's not done yet.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to do the strategy and know what I want to do when I grow up and be a streamer and then do all this stuff and then go to school. And then this, just mentally, what type of
challenges stress,
exactly are we giving these kids to actually go and do their best and perform? Because, the sad thing about esports, and in traditional sports, I'd say everything but basketball, because what 7-foot, 8-foot guy do you know that can shoot a 3? There's not that many of them. But with any other sport, everyone wants to play. But with esports, times that by 10 because everyone has access to a computer. So how are you going to be different and how are you going to improve? But here's the thing. Another question you need to ask yourself is, so you want to be pro. The next question is, how long do you want to be pro for?
Exactly.
Because being a pro is not just a thing you achieve. It's something that that's just the stone, the marker that you continue on after. I think, Pete, that's where you're saying, they don't want to practice because for them, they hit this goal of being pro, but they don't understand that being a pro is a way of life. It's a thing you do, not just something you accomplish.
Lifestyle. Exactly. Because then obviously when you step into the footsteps of being a pro, you have so many external considerations that maybe you didn't think about before, going to a pro. And that could be how many hours a night I need to scrim, how many hours I need to dedicate a week towards VOD review. That kind of nervousness and how do I react to that leading up to a big tournament where previously I actually hadn't felt those nerves. I hadn't felt that, those butterflies before. How do I deal with that? Especially those guys who don't have the help of an external health assistant or an external health professional to help them coach them through it. Because, at the bottom line, at the lower level, a lot of these guys are just have themselves, which is probably 90% of esports, 90, probably even 95. Yeah. It's just them. They don't really have anyone else to be there to help them, to coach them through it, to motivate them. They've got to try and fight that inner battle to actually play well, but then also think in the back of the mind, hey, I want to do this. I want to be a pro. And then what happens when they lose? Oof. It's like they've got to handle that. And how do they handle that? Who's taught them to handle that loss of, so much effort they've put in, scrimming, watching back VODs. Who's helped them to really just understand, hey, it's okay. Let's go again. Let's run it back. And that's a big thing. I remember having a chat with a couple of pro players, specifically in Rocket League, and they told me that, even after a big loss, they just couldn't go back and watch their VOD review. They just couldn't do it because, especially when they were trying to get into that pro scene, because they just thought of it as, it's just so much weakness. They would go back and they'd spend 2 or 3 hours watching back one shot, an open net that they could have easily sunk in. And it's like, why didn't I hit that in? Why didn't I do that? And then you start to have these kind of self-doubt thoughts, that kind of unknown, the uncertainty starts to kick in, right? And it's like, God, what can we do? And how do we kind of maintain that? And I think I had a chat also, is this a matter of And it's a weary topic, one that I'd like to chat about actually.
Yeah.
Is there a point where we get to a point where esports is regulated, do you think?
What do you mean regulated?
So I guess regulated whereby everyone, I guess it's a tricky question. I guess, say for example, if we're talking more so school leagues, so it's regulated in terms of how many hours you put in, the support you have. Every team within that kind of high school league has to have someone there, like maybe not like a teacher, but maybe someone else to be on the team to help them, coach them through and learn how to deal with a loss. And that's why you kick them off early in some sort of regulated scene whereby the amount of hours they put in is restricted. The amount of hours they have towards, they have a certain set amount of hours towards screen reviews, VOD reviews. You could even start to prevent addiction, and you could help to cater that early on.
I see.
But it's pretty impossible. I feel like it's almost impossible to implement.
Well, it's a really, really interesting question, and I think to add on to the muddiness of it is all of these kids, all of these esports gamers, this is probably the first time that they're experiencing all of these things too, because from my experience, oftentimes to get to that level, they've focused on video games. They've focused on training, on playing, on grinding the solo queue ladder. They haven't gotten that training from traditional sports or other places. So now you have someone that's trained on their own, like you said, in their basement, their room, or what have you. And now they're in these high stakes games where people just care about winning, and now they have to perform, and there's not stress, and people are watching them because they've only been playing in their room by themselves, and now they're on. There's a lot of things. Regulation, I mean, my cynical mind says that either someone is either going to have to get really hurt first, or someone's going to have to really smash the league and like have some crazy results where other people want to do the same thing. In a more healthy way. I don't think, unless it's push comes to shove, like there's a lot less chance of getting hurt. So they were not really pushed there. Parents don't really right now aren't on their backs of getting anything going. Maybe you would see that in the pro leagues before high school. I'm guessing with, of course, I'd even see like player leagues maybe before, but then again, I feel like I'm a cynic. So what do you think, Dave?
It's a weird thing because it's tricky because we don't have too much evidence to go off, right? Because obviously,
but do we though? But do we? Essentially, what you want? I feel like we do, because essentially the argument that we're making is with more support and social, physical, structural, teaching how to be a person, etc., they should perform better, or they would perform better versus zero support and instruction. I mean,
I think we do actually. I think I was still thinking about regulation. I think.
Regulation. I think that's the hard part too, because then another thing that we don't think about is oftentimes when people want to regulate stuff, where's the money trail is where we're gonna look too, right? Like who's getting paid to regulate and all those kinds of things, and then then it's a pay to play system where you probably have to pay in to get regulated, like the NCAA, right? I don't know. I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's crazy. There'd be so many laws and stuff. Maybe just esports is just best a free reign and just explore what works and what doesn't.
I mean, I think that's where we're at right now, and I think what we're seeing is the teams that actually invest in their players have better results. I think that's the problem, where the teams, I'm throwing shade at our American teams, where it's kind of like we're just gonna buy our way out. Training, player development, we'll talk about it, but there's always some kid that's gonna want to play for cheaper and for longer. And look, but we're just gonna give them our apparel and they'll like rep our team and they'll be all happy, right? Like, that's the sad part. I think that's what we don't think about in esports, where if you don't invest in the kids, they often get tossed, and the next one gets tossed, but there's no improvement at all. That's
exactly. And it's crazy because you can switch up rosters like no tomorrow, can't you? To put up into perspective, so we're currently going through, I guess, pre-season for RLCS down in OCE, and we jump on for scrims, every night, 2-3 hours, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, and last season, because I understood the rosters, right? I understood, okay, we're going up against this team. Oh yeah, that's those three guys. We're going up against that team. Yeah, we'll be fine. We 4-0'd them last time in a best of whatever. We're feeling pretty confident. But now during the preseason, and I just jumping on scrims every night, it's almost like there's someone different on every, we versed, okay, so say for example, we versed team, Made last night. Okay, that was these three players. We versed them tonight again. Oh, hang on, one player's missing. Oh, they had a roster change. And then you go next week and it's like, okay, two players rostered out. Oh, really? Okay, wow. Okay, no worries. And it's crazy because preseason at the start of it, actually, there was a massive announcement where one of the biggest teams, Overt, they were really strong team. They were together and really performing really well. They actually had quite a bit of an upset in regards to last season. Because I think they're all three of them 15-year-olds, right? So they're really coming in with that drive to actually really want to perform within the scene. And I think, due to some maybe internal communications, they just didn't really work out towards the start of this preseason, and they split up, right? And they kind of branched out to a couple of teams. Another organization picked one of the players up, and he's pretty good. He's like probably top 5 with an OCE. And I kid you not, 2.5 weeks later, he's off the team, onto another team. And it's like, well, hang on, how does that work in the back end of things? Because an org picked them up. Did they not have like a contract put in place? It's just crazy. They switch in and out so often. And then I guess fast forward to now, I guess we're like 20 days away from actual season start, and the original 3, they're back together. So they've gone through whole preseason not really playing together, jumping from team to team to team to team, playing with other people, trying to make it work. And they've come back to just being together again. So it's like, it's just crazy how often you can just roster switch things up. And that kind of just puts into place, like, if you're constantly changing teammates, does that really hinder your ability to grow as a player? Because you're not able to, maybe you've developed a really good, rapport with one of your players, with one of the guys. You really connect with them, you drive through. All of a sudden, he's off on another team. It's like, well, hang on, I really connect with him. Now I've got to play with someone else. I don't really mesh as well with them. I'm going to go jump to another team, and it's like this constant in and out and in and out and in and out. I think it's just crazy.
Like, how are you supposed to develop team synergy like that? And changing
Exactly.
the whole person, that's a new communication style, that's a whole relationship style, that's a whole play style that has to change. And at the same time, what does that teach the players? That I'm expendable, that I can be traded at any time? Then why should I be investing in these people? If I know I can be traded, like, what's the point? Even if I win, or even if we win, 3 of us or the 5 of us or whatever, if we're just gonna get traded and chopped up, then why should I even try?
It's crazy. It's just crazy. And does the same thing happen, I guess, over in the NA region, where it's like teams can jump in and jump out, or is it more so you have to be locked in for a certain amount of time? Do you know?
I know for amateur scene, I think, and I'm speaking from League specifically. I think in the amateur scene for League, you can roster swap, as there is roster lock times, but you can. Amateur scene is still unregulated for the most part. College is a little bit different. You got to go to the same school, but even that, like, if you transfer schools, you can just hop to the next school and be fine. There's no I need to sit out a season after red shirt. There's none of that. So I guess in general, the answer is no. And then looking at LCS, like, question mark.
Yeah, I see you. You have a couple of chats with the college guys on. How do they go?
They're really interesting. I really like the college population. I really do think that what I like about it is that, one, you don't always have the best of the best, because what you're limited to is the school. Not saying that like the players I work with aren't the best of the best, because they are, but like, just have every year there's a different, team, could be a different feel. They're going through life stuff that they have to address while doing school and league and developing as a person. So I love that part of it. And just really helping them all talk to each other, I think, is really, really fun. And just what I love about college students is that they're typically smarter. Like, they have a little bit more college, like, life experience, and they can kind of think through and vocalize their feelings and stuff. So I take a little more language, which is nice, but it's super fun. Super fun.
Yeah. We don't have, I guess in our unis over here, we don't have as much of a thorough, I guess we kind of have an esports program, but it's definitely not as fleshed out. as it is, I guess, over in NA and EU. But I mean, we've even got an esports hub. Like we've got an esports hub at my uni, but I don't think that gets used. So obviously not now due to COVID. But even before that, I mean, I think there was a couple of times where there was teams in there practicing. But yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I think that high school is a lot more actually mainstream in terms of like schools competing together as opposed to even unis. I guess it makes sense, but then I guess more players within the boundaries of the uni play, but it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I think typically why I think my hypothesis of why esports is kind of blowing up right now in the US is COVID and traditional sports took a fat hit. So the only thing that was kind of like untouched was esports, and so a lot of schools are using esports as a recruiting tool because a lot of people play games nowadays. So I think that's why people are investing a lot in college. I'm not sure about high school because I think high school has leagues and stuff, but I don't think people would invest because like public schools have to.
Yeah.
But I think that's why more colleges are trying to use as a recruiting tool mostly. Looking at the money financial perspective. Yeah. Like, what is the culture of like? Oh, I'm sorry. What's up? Go.
No, you go.
I was gonna say, what's the like in general the like Australian lean feel towards esports and being pro and stuff?
I think it's definitely a lot better than it was 5 years ago. I had a really good chat early on MindClickers with a guy who founded the University of Queensland's esports program. And he did that pretty much single-handedly. And that was really interesting to hear how he built that out, how he fleshed it out. And I guess what, the uni's approach was towards esports. And we kind of had a chat, like, if this was 5 years ago, he probably wouldn't have got it approved, right? Because it's like, is this really going to be worthwhile, the investment? But now you're starting to see a little bit more adoption, a little bit more playing around the scenes. And I mean, I think it's great. I think that specifically within, your kind of New South Wales, Victoria states, there's a lot more dominance in regards to esports organizations. There's a lot more popping up, which I think is fantastic, especially within the kind of the lower brackets. I'm starting to notice within the scenes, there's just a lot more activity, which is great because, as soon as you, pretty much off the top of my head, there's probably like 5 or so organizations that really just dominate the scene within OCE. But as soon as you have more lower guys starting to come up and starting to challenge that and even just start to create a couple of waves in the water, that's where it becomes really interesting. Because I'm pretty sure, for a couple of games, the same organization just really just reign supreme in those games just consistently. And that's pretty much what they're dominant for. Whereas I guess over in NA and EU, you have a lot more variety in terms of organizations who are constantly a back and forth battle. A back and forth battle for actually, taking the place or even just, top 3. But over here, it's kind of a little bit more, okay, all right, this finals is on this weekend. They've got it in the bag, kind of, why should I watch this kind of thing? But it's starting to change, which is good to see. It's starting to, a little bit more of the lower guys starting to come up, make waves. It's similar to like how I mentioned just before with those 15-year-olds. They came in completely unexpected. We lost those guys just because we didn't understand their play style. They were crazy. And yeah, it's really good to see though. It's definitely evolving, which is good. But I still think we're way behind the bigger regions for sure.
Okay, I was kind of wondering too. Like we've been talking a lot. I've been realizing. Hope it doesn't come off like we're pooping on pros or what have you, or the pros
no.
or how challenging it is. I'm just wondering though, if like I was a Rocket League player, if I was a developing esport player, what do you think the tools or things I should be focusing on besides just the mechanics of the game to help me get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I went through, I guess, when I did a couple of coaching with those guys in the high school league. I think just having this kind of overall mindset towards the game. Do you want to be a pro in the long term? Do you want to just kind of jump in, explore the scene, have a bit of fun, make content? What's the goal? What's the direction? I think really establishing that sets up the mindset and the boundary towards what you want to do. I really am a big fan of just really starting to, before doing anything, obviously if your mechanics are feeling pretty good, just starting to cater a little bit more towards external performance. So starting to just target sleep, starting to target hydration. I coached a lot of guys who who were going 6, 7, 8 hours without even having a drink of water. And it's like, well, hang on.
Energy drinks, bro. Calm down.
No, without no water, no anything at all, no liquids.
Oh, Jesus.
It was crazy.
What they pee, just dust just came out when they used the bathroom? Like, how'd that happen, dude?
Yeah, it was crazy, because what I usually go through okay, external performance, sleep, hydration, nutrition, stretching, exercise, and then we kind of just elaborate on each topic as it comes up. And we kind of got to the discussion of, sleep was actually awesome. They had a sleep schedule put in place. So yeah, great, fantastic, big tick there. They understand the importance of sleep, having a sleep schedule, especially for games that are in season early. Usually we get a 10 o'clock game. Fantastic, we're prepared for that. And then it came to the discussion of nutrition. Yeah, he's doing pretty well there. And then hydration, and he's like, yeah, no, I just don't really drink water or any liquid at all. I kind of feel pretty good without it. I was like, well, hang on. Even if we're just a little bit dehydrated, that can have massive impacts on our cognitive abilities. That can have massive impacts on our visual acquisition scanning. That can have massive impacts. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. And then fast forward, he's starting to drink a lot more water. He's starting to feel a lot more clearer, crisper. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why. I think starting to target those external things, even starting to, you don't have to jump to the gym massively and start doing deads and squats for like 400 Ks. Go for a walk, just chillax, or, do something that you like to do in terms of physical activity. That's the best way I've started to approach it, especially with a lot of the younger guys. Mm-hmm. But then more so the internal motivation, the underlying mindset, the emotional regulation sort of stuff. I really just tend to just go off your experience. How did you feel during this game? How did you feel during that game? And then starting to break down some of those things. And I think the best way to do that is if you have a nice team that supports you, where you can openly flow and discuss it and kind of bounce ideas off. Because obviously, if you are that individual just like chipping away in solo queue in like a lobby, it's so much more harder in comparison to if you're jumping in and running ranked with a friend, right? Because you have someone to back you up, you feel confident and motivated that you've got a teammate that you can actually perform with. And have a bit of fun with as well, because I think that's a big factor at the end of the day, just having a nice bit of fun. But I think, jumping into that, it's just important to understand that, not every game's going to be a win, and that's okay. But then really just building on that, what's my motivation? What really drives me? And what do I need to change? What am I ambivalent about? What am I on the fence about in regards to, okay, I know that if I start to do, every night before scrims, I start to do, maybe 10, 15 minutes of shooting practice in free play mode. I start to, run a couple of training packs. That would be really good for me. But then just completely neglect that. Just being on the line about that, acknowledging that, if I do this, it can lead to a better performance, but then actually don't going ahead and doing it. Just addressing those sort of kind of surface topics for sure.
Okay, so in your experience,
all the things,
yeah, all those things. Like, in your experience, is it like a lack of knowledge? Is it just a lack of I don't want to do it? Like a lack of like a structure or having people to keep me accountable? Like for most people, like what is it about this process that's challenging or holds them back, you think?
I think knowledge is a big one. I think that once you've taken someone from, or I guess when you start to just, have a chat with someone who's done something for so long by themselves, they've gotten to that professional level without that support of an external health professional, without the support of someone to just, bounce ideas off. How you feeling? Are you ready for game day? Are you ready to, take the dub today? How you feeling? And, get them excited. They don't have that. And it's like, well, why do I need it? I mean, I've gotten to this level without it. Why do I need it? And then starting to have that conversation to really just understand, acknowledge that, a little bit of support can go a long way. And I mean, sure, I've had a chat previously back in StarCraft times where, guys just didn't want help at all. They just flat out just didn't want it. They got to, top 5 Grandmaster by themselves. They understood their own mindset. They understood their own game plan. Come game day, and they just didn't really want to hear it, especially from someone, right, that wasn't on the same level as them. I think that's a big one, right? I think when you are starting to receive support or knowledge or feedback from someone who isn't on the same rank as you, then you just kind of just look down at them. You think, oh, what do you know? And that's that kind of shift in mindset, which I think can, sometimes be drastic for a lot of players. Because obviously, at the end of the day, coaches aren't always going to be, or they're not expected to be at the same level of their players, right? Did Ronaldo's coach, was he such a great footballer as he was? Or, Kobe Bryant's coach, was he such a good basketball player at the same level he was? Probably not. But it's about having someone else that can really just help provide that support to augment on, right? To just be an add-on, to just help you, to back you in, to give you that support, and to just drive it home. I think that's crucial.
Oh, dude, I vibe with that. I think when I first started, or even till now, people ask me like, "Oh, what's your rank?" Like one of the first questions, like, "Hey, what's your like? What are you? What are you doing here? What's your rank?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, there's my rank because I spent all my other time studying psychology to help you with these problems or with your challenges or to support you the best I can. That's why I'm terrible." Well, what do you say, or what is it like for you when people ask you like, "Well, what's up, Parker? What's your rank, bro? Like, what do you got to teach me?"
I just flex them and say, "Hey, mate, I am the toppers of the toppers." Take a step back, mate. No. I mean, it's not expected. Obviously, most often than not, I jump in with my boys and play a couple of Rocket League games, and it's kind of like there's this kind of funny kind of similar that we kind of build together, because we sometimes enter the in-game tournament, and it's like, well, no, because I'm probably, in terms of Rocket League, I'm probably like, I think my highest was a Diamond 4 in comparison to these guys who were just like, Fever's top 2 in terms of ranked MMR in the region, just absolutely ranked gods, right? And it's like, well, hang on, and then it's like, well, okay, we're playing a tournament, and then it's like, hey, he's boosting him. I'm like, well, hang on, we're not boosting. It's just a little bit of friendly ranked. It's interesting, and then I get quick chatted in game like, what a save. Well, yeah, it was a good save. I missed it.
Thank you,
because I'm not at that high level. I didn't hit that shot because I haven't sunk 9,500 hours into the game. And yeah, I cop a bit of flack sometimes because I flex the title, because if you win the tournament you get an SSL title, which is the highest rank. And I'm nowhere near that rank, so I just flex the title in like 1v1s, and they're like, "Oh heck, an SSL in Diamond? What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, just having a couple of games, mate. How are you?" And it's really comical. And the same thing used to happen in StarCraft, but it's funny when you, I guess, score a goal, and it was like a basic goal, and they just immediately leave the game and just forfeit because they think, "Oh, it's just going to be an absolutely thrashing." But in relevancy, we're the same ranked. But yeah, it's really cool. It's really interesting. It's a good experience.
It's funny how often we think, and I extend this to like normal life too, how sometimes we just discount people that we can't learn anything from them, or they have nothing to offer us, or who's this guy and they just want to do something. It's like, trying to help you. And I vibe with that so much. We're like, yeah, people just are doing things one way for so long that must be correct because there's not a model of how I'm supposed to learn or how I'm supposed to do this correctly. So I've been doing this. Who are you to come tell me anything different? And I think it's funny because when I have those types of conversations, I'm definitely like, yeah, everything works until it doesn't. And then what are you going to do?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like,
it's crazy.
At the same time, like, I think as a practitioner, from my perspective, it's like, I understand. It makes sense because you're doing all these things for a reason. Like you are acting and you're thinking, and that makes total sense. I get it. And so I think that's where the impasse is. Like, I totally see where you're coming from. How can I ask you to try or see it this way, or I guess be flexible just a little bit. And that's always the game we play.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And I guess we had a chat about it before we jumped on, right? This whole sort of, we had a brief mention about whether it's in our DNA to be liked, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
it's an interesting question. And I mean, is it in our DNA to be liked to the point where it makes sense? In my mind, it sort of makes sense whereby, nowadays you have social media and you have, okay, I'm going to make this post. I'm really, I love this game. I'm really optimistic towards it. I'm going to make a post. Oh, it didn't get any likes. Oh, I better delete it quickly so no one sees it and I don't feel embarrassed. It's kind of like, is our desire to actually have joy being crushed by this social desire to be liked?
I'll let you go first. At the same time, isn't it interesting though?
It is.
These companies have created a social currency from nothing.
Mm.
Where a like is so important, where we will scroll, it'll keep us, comments, watches. Like, these are targets of success, pieces that they've created out of nothing, that cost them nothing, but to us mean everything for some stupid reason. You know why, dopamine, it makes sense. But isn't it so interesting that companies can just create something out of nothing that you value, but it has, in the real world, has no value at all?
Exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you close the program or turn off your phone, to a certain degree, it becomes irrelevant. And it's crazy to think this disconnect can be so easily done. Yet we're controlled into thinking, I really want to, get a couple of likes in this post, or, if it's someone who's, maybe even done some art, that could be a really good example where they've chugged away 50 hours. Someone comments, that looks bad, or I could have done that, or, don't get any likes. Well, it's like, and then they go ahead and delete it. And it's like, well, are we letting this kind of barrier stop us from actually doing what we want to do? And I think it's a great example when we look towards Twitch streamers, right? And you only get a couple of viewers. And it's kind of like, well, hang on, I'm putting so much effort in. I'm doing, 6, 7, 8 hour streams. I've got my webcam set up perfectly. I've got my mic on. I've got my graphics. I just spent 4.5 hours on a logo. Yep. Oh God, help me. And it's like, you put so much effort into it, but in return, you just get so minimal reward. And then it's kind of like, well, is it worth it? Is it worth it to the point where, I'm counting the likes as some sort of currency, like you mentioned. But I think it's important to just kind of have that mindset. Well, yeah, I mean, everyone started from the same position, theoretically. Theoretically, in a perfect world, there's obviously pros who can just jump on and straight away they have 10,000 viewers. But a majority of people would have just started on, would have jumped on, would have had a couple of viewers, would have got a couple of likes, and then would have just started to build themselves up and just chip away. And I think what Amy Palmer said, what I had her on MindClickers, was that, social media, esports, the long game, it's just such a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. And if you make it into a sprint, if you shape your mindset into a sprint, that's when you just feel like everything's against you. That's when you start to really nitpick. Oh, okay, let me look at this post. Oh, it got 400 insights. Okay, well, what percentage of people actually liked it? I got no likes. So 400 people actually saw the post, interacted with my post, but nobody liked it. Wow. What can I do now? And then they go ahead and delete it. They feel bad about themselves. That's demotivating. They don't want to do the content they actually originally thought, hey, I want to go ahead and play this game. I want to make this content. I'm passionate about that. And that starts to be an impact. So I think it's a tricky situation where we're starting to, I guess, bridge the gap between what we want to do and how we want to act. But then how do we bridge that when we are the ones that are in control?
Oh my God, dude. Powerful. Well,
clip that.
Dude, clip it. Clip it. Okay, so 3 things. First, I feel a little attacked. What I told you about my stream and what I was going through, I thought you were going to keep that between you and me, bro. Like, second of all, like, on a personal note, it seems like this instance, because it seems like it got echoed, where something that you really liked about esports was that, like, everyone has a level playing field. Everyone can, like, just start on their own, and depends on how their decisions is the outcome of the game. It seems like that is also why maybe you like this career, or maybe why or how you approach people, where everyone has an equal opportunity to do something. You just have to go and do it. You don't have, everyone's equal. Like, everyone's got talents, whatever, but at the end of that, when everyone starts this game, equal, and you put in work and you go do your thing. That seems like a very nice piece value that I kind of got out of that thing for you. And then the third thing of, wow, that's a really huge, like, dilemma of, do I want to be liked? And what I really heard from what you're saying was, what do you want to do? What is your plan? What are you going out there? What are you setting your metrics of success? Because the world will say the metric of success for you, person, is likes, what they comment on, how many people watch you. That is how worthy you are to me, right?
Yeah.
But what do you find worthy? What do you find valuable? Do you find you playing what you want as success? Are you creating a community of a small community? That's what you define as success. Do you want to, who do you want to be? Because then what happens if you be somebody else, you get all those likes, those comments, those things, that's not who you are. How long can you keep that up for? And then would you want people to love not you? Or are you okay with chilling, playing your game with your 2 viewers, enjoying your time doing what you're doing? Because like you said, it's a marathon. If you don't like it, you're not going to do it. So what do you want to do? What do you want to love? Because I think that's the weird thing that the internet also does, is it really does help you find a community of people that like the things that you do, like the things that you love and want to create and want to show. So why don't we find those communities instead of the ones that try to poop on us? Like that is also really interesting. I mean, I guess it's hard because I think biologically 150 like is the group size of like terminal velocity of a group is 150 of people that you can know and really care about and think about and stuff like that. So I think biologically, and this is coming from an Islander, right? Like you need people. You want people to like you because that means survival. So I think survival is key. But at the same time, the internet gaming makes the world so big that you can find that 150 or that group that really fits you instead of you trying to fit some group that will like you or else, if you only. And that's going to mess with your head, I think.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a huge one, man. That is...
that was good. I'm glad we touched on that. That was awesome.
Yeah, but I feel like everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be respected. Everyone wants to be cared for. I think that's a human trait. I mean, that's why that's why I love video games, because I think that's where people do now connect and create relationships and love each other is video games. But how can we do that better? And then how can you also use it to love yourself too?
For sure. Definitely. I mean, is there only one? Is there always going to be one definitive answer? Probably not. And it's going to be changing, right? It's going to be always changing. Your motivation, opportunities will present, different things will come in, different things will leave, and then being able to just roll through it and just think, is this what I want to be doing? Is it not? Do I want to dabble? And just have fun and just make a nice video, gets 1 view, gets 2 likes. Who cares? Doesn't matter. I had fun making the video. I can look back in 2 years. I can watch the video. I can still have a bit of laugh out of it. Knowing that I made it. And, I guess that was my mindset towards MindClickers. It doesn't matter if I get 1,000 views on a video or 1,000 listens, as long as I can, get it to one person, get feedback from one person, my job's done. That's all I want to do. Just help one person. And I've done that. So, that was my incentive towards MindClickers. That's my drive. It's not to really blow up and be the biggest craze. Sure, that'd be nice. I mean, it'd be nice to, blow up and everyone to tune in. But, at the end of the day, if I can just help one person, then I'm more than content. Everything else there is just a bonus.
Well, hopefully, shout out MindClickers. Help my friends make that thing blow up. It's a great show. That's I think that's really important though. You found your purpose. It sounds like you really sing it out. This is why I'm doing this. This is what I want to get out of the experience. This is why I'm doing this experience. And because of that, all these other things fell into place and you are doing it. And you're like, this is exactly what I'm doing. Versus other people, it's like, what should I be doing? Why should I be doing this? How are other people doing it? And I have to do it like them. And when I don't match up or when I don't get the things or the same accolades or success, then I'm a failure versus just weren't doing something that was you. And that's okay.
Exactly.
But it's scary to be you, and it's scary to risk and chance it, and not saying that it's not. At the same time, like, that's not for you. So
crazy, man.
I'm looking at the time, dude. Like, I'm getting all jacked up again, and I have to like make sure that I don't start something, and we'll be here all day. So in honor, Ultralist started this. You do it too. Like, we went so many places, Parker. Like, if you were
so many places,
to, like,
loved it.
Give 3 key points or key lessons or key things to the homies out there, what would you say? What were those key takeaway points for you? Parker's points. All right. Go for it.
All right, my points. Find your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it to blow up? Is it to grow? Is it to have that underlying motivation to wake up and think, yes, I'm number 1 OC, I'm number 1 NA on the leaderboards. Let's go. Find your why. I think finding your why will help you to set the pace. Setting the pace is important. because obviously we don't want to go too fast. We don't want to go too slow. We want to have that nice pace where we feel content with progress. I think being content with progress is the biggest thing, because if you have expectations and you set them too high and you don't reach them, that's when you can feel that disappointment. That's when that motivation starts to drop. Well, hang on. Whoa, we don't want that. We want to just feel nice and content. We want to feel that we're making progress. But if we come into a loss, or if we have a defeat, or if something doesn't go our way, that's okay. We can take a step back. We can analyze it. We can think, it's all right. Let's run it back. Let's full send, run it back. That's the mantra I like to use.
Full send, baby. Shout that out.
I think another step that I would take is just cater towards what you need. Obviously, the grind, a lot of people just, get lost in the grind. 3 or 4, 5, 6, 8 hours can feel like 30 minutes sometimes. So I think just being acknowledged of the grind and what it's doing towards yourself in terms of external performance, in terms of your mind and how you're feeling as well. Because obviously at the end of the day, how you feel and if you're feeling hydrated, if you feel like you had a good sleep, those are going to be the bigger impacts. They're going to have a bigger, more importance over that extra half an hour or that extra one game that you wanted to grind out, that ultimately puts you off your sleep schedule, that ultimately, you forgot to wake up early in the morning because you grinded an extra 2 hours out. Those extra small chips won't be the biggest battle in the arena. I think it's important to just understand that, sometimes we'll have our ups, sometimes we'll have our downs, but as long as we can just be, pretty consistent with how we're feeling, catering towards what we need as a person, then we can perform. And I think finally, just finding your wavelength. I think if you're on a team, being able to mesh with your players and build that synergy. I think the dream goal for everyone on a team is to be able to jump on half an hour before scrims. Let's go. How are we feeling, guys? We're feeling pretty good. Going tonight's scrims. Yeah, let's have a bit of fun. Let's enjoy ourselves and back each other in. I think being able to provide, and have that kind of really nice chemistry in a team setting is crucial. And if you don't have that, if you're a single player out in ranked, grinding hard, having a bit of fun, try and find a friend. Jump in. Jump in with someone that you know or you don't know. Explore that. Have fun. You'll be surprised at how fun the grind is, how much more enjoyable it is, even how much you perform better when you're doing it with someone and you're not alone. So just have fun, be who you want to be, and just full send, run it back.
Woo! Have fun, be who you want to be, full send, run it back. But I love those 3 points: finding your why, being mindful of the grind, and finding your wavelength. Those are 3 very literal goosebumps inducing points, my friend. All right, last but certainly not least, I want you to full send, tell people what you got, where they can find you, and any other projects you got coming up, my friend. Let's go.
So you can find me on Twitter at Coach _LBP, on Instagram at lock.park, and on LinkedIn at Laclan Parker. They're pretty much the 3 social platforms I'm most active on. If you send me a DM, if you have a question regarding anything, you can be certain that I will get back to you. No stress at all. MindClickers is pretty much MindClickers, MindClickers on every platform. We're talking LinkedIn, we're talking Pinterest, we're talking Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, baby.
It's all. So also mindclickers.com is the website I have where you can find all the episodes, especially the episode with yours truly, Psych Sensei. It's a big one. It's within the top 5 episodes of actually being listened to. So definitely, if you have the chance to jump on and check that out, highly recommend it.
One more. They can find you on one more social. Forget it, my friend. The one they should be waking up to every morning for that full send goodness, baby.
What? Oh yeah, TikTok. That's it.
Oh, your TikTok.
I do have a TikTok.
You're very inspirational TikTok that they should be listening to.
I do have a TikTok. I'll be honest, I haven't been too active on there most recently. I open TikTok and I think, oh God, what's this? And then I just end up turning it off. But I think I'll get back into TikTok because obviously it's pretty easy to take a clip on there. But yeah, TikTok, you can find me on Full Send Coach. You can find me on MindClickers, and you can find me on Laclan Parker on TikTok. So 3 different TikTok accounts. Nice bit of content there for you as well.
Awesome. So please look for Coach LBP everywhere you can. Remember his 3 steps to success. And thank you so much for coming. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. It's the first time I ever like cruised by the Rocket League page, so awesome. Thanks for coming by. As always, my name is Dr. Ryan Terrell. Teaching you to think, play, and slay, baby. One day, one game, one conversation at a time. And remember, friends, stronger mental wins.